tonight, the discussion will feature two leaders, Dexter, Kishida, and Pomai, Weigert, who are working to leverage the tourism industry to change the food system in these positive ways that, again, a consensus of scientists says really needs to happen. And this is for the health and welfare of people, as well as the economy and socioeconomic development. Pomai Weigert is an agribusiness consultant with GoFarm Hawaiʻi, a statewide program that develops new farmers and provides agribusiness support for ag-related businesses. She also serves as an advisor for the Hawaiʻi Agritourism Association and is an agri-marketing and community relations specialist for the Hawaii's agritourism industry. Pomai sits on the Hawaii Tourism Authority Destination Management Action Plan steering committees for Maui and Hawaii Island. And she's on the board of directors for the Island of Hawaii Visitors Bureau, the Agricultural Leadership Foundation of Hawaii, and the Maui Native Hawaiian Chamber of Commerce.
Sounds right.
Yeah, thank you. And Dexter Kishida is the City and County of Honolulu's first food security and sustainability program manager. Over the last 20 years, he's worked as an advocate to create a healthy, robust food system in Hawaii through institutional purchasing. His career started in food service operations, leading to the Kokua Hawaii Foundation and the Department of Education as the farm-to-school coordinator, implementing the Aina Pono programs, most recently through the Oʻahu Good Food Program. He and the city's food and agriculture team are working with Oʻahu-based hotels and restaurants who've committed to a good food framework. So please, a round of applause for our speakers. Thank you so much for being here. The first question is really about willingness to pay more. You know, one of the things we've seen is that research shows residents are willing to pay more for locally produced food that supports a sustainable food system here. But more important, tourists are willing to pay more as well. And a recent study found that 78% of tourists surveyed indicated they would be willing to pay more and to support locally farmed food and enhance the farming economy in Hawaii. What does this say about the role tourism can play?
You want to start off?
You can go.
Great, make the city jump in first.
Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting study by Dr. Jerry Agrusa that kind of wraps around maybe an authentic experience of what people are really searching for and that they're willing to pay for it. And, you know, it also showed maybe the elasticity in the tourism industry for food, which is good in this case. As our team in the city is looking at food access across to everyone, residents and visitors, how do we then leverage this work? And I think what this means is, one, as we talk about regenerative tourism, as our destination management action plans, I'm gonna have to say DMAP forward because I can never say that enough. The DMAP plan, the plans across the state really highlight buying local, and I think the discussions were really rooted in food, then how much more important it is to showcase the bounty that Hawaii has to visitors and give them that experience that I hope I don't say too many insightful words, that Hawaii's more than pineapple.
Thanks, Dexter. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see you. I gotta just always make connection when I am actually, it's not meant to be like a separate space, you know, that so many of the people that are in here also help us move the needle. In regards to price point, I feel like you gotta have money to come out here. So I feel like the expectation for Hawaii and what you're gonna spend in Hawaii, those are the visitors we're also targeting. You can't be poor and come to Hawaii. I mean, we're already just struggling here as a people. So I think when we're looking at price point, it's we can ask for high price points. We're already asking for high price points. It's how does that make that down to a farmer? Yeah, that I feel is more of the, what is the price point for a farmer? And that needs to go up. What are the price points for living wage? So when we're looking at the system of tourism, you know, and me and Dexter were talking about this before, I don't want to say it's one of the easier parts of the system is getting the money. Like, we can get the money. The money's coming in, the people are coming in, but like, how do we spread that across? Or I feel like we are in a time now where like we're trying to figure out how to better spread that across, because it doesn't equate. So that's my thoughts on great that we're charging more and that we know people will buy it, but like, is a farmer gonna see that?
Or is it stuck up
is it
here
stuck?
somewhere?
Yeah, it is stuck.
Yeah, that's, so here's another question. So can you talk about, and maybe this is one of the solutions for that, institutional purchasing and the role it can play in getting money to the farmers from the purchasers?
I guess to put a number on it, 2019 data that HTA-DBED did a quick study on in 2022 came up, I think, just under 30 million in local spend, something like that, if I remember correct. And the percentage anyway came out to like 15% of the food is being bought locally. And so that's a good start. I think we're shooting for 30 as a state, so a little bit of ways to get there. But there's definitely an opportunity here. I mean, I know we've looked and had conversations on schools and hospitals and prison systems and that part of the institutional large purchaser, but hotels and the hospitality sector is an area that at least for the city, quite recently, being February, we launched into in our Oʻahu Good Food program to work with them, because it's quite honestly mutually beneficial, right? That they have, if they can present to their guest authentic Hawaiʻi, then that tells that story, and they can help us tell that story if they're knowledgeable about it. The flip side is working with our hospitality sector to honor and show the respect due to both the farmer and others, to ensure that they pay for it. And so this is where there's definite opportunity. If we're only at 15% and we're going to get higher, we have hotels like the Kahala hitting 52% buying local. They're running dinners totally made. All of the main products are from local farms. So it's possible, and there seems to be a willingness.
So to ask the question a different way, what does having that market, a pretty big, consistent market of buyers, institutional buyers, mean for farmers, mean for the farms you work with, Pomai?
Sure. Well, I mean, we don't grow enough food for already us, you know, so like that's just kind of like in our minds. But like, you know, a lot of the initiatives with tourism is like give us money so that we can like fuel it back into tourism, you know, where like we need money to like fuel back into Hawaiʻi, you know? So like, I think that when we're definitely, this is like a policy conversation. This is like, it's so much more than like the willingness to do it. There's so much system that we have to navigate. So like when we're looking at, I mean, I feel like community people would like tourism so much more if like their dollars were actually going to building food capacity and food production, like directly, not like, how is this gonna benefit the visitor? Like, it's gonna benefit the visitor because like we will have food in Hawaiʻi for the people who live here. So that's kind of it on that one.
Right, so it can ultimately, if people are buying food, even if it's tourists buying food, it supports the farms then grow, and they are maybe bigger to feed us as well.
Yes, sorry, I know you're asking about solution, and I feel like a lot of the solutions that I see actually happening in Hawaii have to do with relationship building. You know, so like it takes people like us to be in the Zoom meetings, to be in there like trying to come up with a pilot. And I think right now we're in an incredible time where like people are piloting things. Like, let's just see if it will work. And we have a lot here that is like, you know, a lot of people have been burned. It had, you know, especially in agriculture and tourism, you know, so there's a lot of scorn feelings that I feel like we have to, I think just as like a culture in Hawaii, also overcome. And then, but like there is a willingness, but like we cannot we cannot, even if people pay more, like we need land access, we need water access, we need housing. You know, like who is gonna farm the food for the visitors who are gonna pay the high price point? So I feel like the solution is not siloed either. The solution is also very collaborative.
That's, I think, two things: the relationship building, absolutely key, and the information transfer, both sorely lacking. And that's where what entities, and maybe that should be government's role, to help create the space to do that, but also, like, one of the intentions of the Wild Good Food Program is to get information. We keep saying we're gonna double ag, we don't know the baseline. Well, this might not get the solid baseline, but it's a proxy for something. But now if we know that this hotel needs X amount of stuff, we can communicate it to the supply end to say, they use 14 tons of sprouts. Maybe sprouts is a worthwhile business now. And so that is what we hope to.
And I feel like making it in certain cases micro. Like I think a lot of the things we're looking for are like, how can we do it on a huge, large scale?
No, correct. I should correct myself. Right. Not looking for the one 14 ton.
Yes.
But how can these 2 acre farmers
Yes.
achieve this goal?
Totally. And then like multiply that. Yeah, that is, I think, where that's where we're trying to find that middle ground. Like how can the 2 acres, like what if we had a bunch of 2 acres that were able to produce the sprouts? Like then we would, you know, and we see different models. It's emerging and trying and fighting the good fight. So I think like, but it also requires a lot of support, like administrative support. Like just because you can grow food, it doesn't stop there. There's like so many other processes to actually getting it to the institution, and having those people push those things through it is vital, and then comes back again to the relationship building.
So who is participating now, and is there an example of something that's working? Pomai.
A system that's working?
Yes. Someone participating, maybe institutional buying, something like that, that really could be a model for others to follow.
Dexter, do you know anyone who's successful on a big scale? I feel like, honestly, I don't see anybody doing it on a big scale. Probably the biggest Kameme schools, they're giving it a good go with Kapalama, like, yep.
I think if we did this in a year, we'd have better
Yeah.
hard data on this. And in fact, we're just talking with a few of you, we're at this cusp, which is so exciting,
Yes.
but also nervous, because then you get invited to talk and they tell you what's happening, you go, a lot. How do you know? Because we're almost there. Not so exciting. Not so exciting.
Yep.
But there's KS, Punahou, bunch of schools. We have over 27 properties on Oʻahu that are hotels that have signed up for the pledge. So they're showing this intention of more than just buying local, but figuring out how to add value to the system. So all this intention is there, starting to come into contracts where today there's a press release. Can I mention names? Is that?
Of course, yes.
Tiki's released a press release about the local purchasing that they're starting to do. One of our Oʻahu Good Food pledgees. Kahala just did an amazing dinner supporting Mountain View Farms. It was pork and veggies from one farm alone. So there's definitely these steps. Talks about fruit leathers, locally made fruit leathers. So ugly fruit, not like the ugly fruit, but ugly fruit being turned into a fruit leather that's gonna show up in a bar. I don't quite get the concept, but I'm not a mixologist. Really cool. So these are maybe the baby bites or the baby steps that are happening. But I can't wait to tell the story of how now these huge hotel chains are supporting food hubs by forward contracting, that are providing support to get folks food safety certified through North Shore EVP, right? All of these things that need capital and need upfront agreements. So now maybe our farmers can get land because they have a contract in hand saying, I'm gonna buy 14 tons of stuff, or whatever you got, I'll buy. And can do that.
Okay. But to go back to one of Pomai's points about things you need, okay, so let's say you have the forward contracts, you've got a guaranteed flow of money coming in, you still need land, you're still gonna need, and you mentioned housing, and I think farm housing and zoning for farm housing can be a problem, the city could step in and fix that?
I think it's done. We're not going to talk anymore. No. Yeah, that sadly is in our Kuleana space.
Yeah.
That is us. We are in the midst of a land use, Bill 10 is currently being heard to talk about land use. Agriculture hasn't specifically been heard yet. That's looking like June, maybe a little later. So one point is advocate. And really, what means a lot to our council or legislators is our farmers speaking into this, because housing is a huge issue. We have farmers that live in town and farm in Waimanalo, or live in town and farm in Kunia. And there's some concepts now in Bill 10, ag clusters, et cetera, that could allow for additional housing, but we also don't want to make it too complex.
Right.
But we don't want a mansion and a pool that should have been for growing food.
Right, well, that's been a problem, so you want to fix that. But it's not just, it sounds like it's not just farmers who might want to talk to the legislators, the city council, but maybe regular people who say, wait a minute, we see the connections and maybe we do need to fix this. If we want locally grown food, people need to live close to where they're working, and maybe we need to fix it.
I also think that the skill set of a farmer has really changed. You know, even just like 10, 20 years ago, you know, Hawaii has a deep-rooted plantation history. So, you know, was a whole generation of people that were like told to not go into farming, like, cause that was hard, backbreaking work. So like, we're also on this cusp of that generation realizing that it wasn't just about plantation farming, it was about like entrepreneurialism, it was about sustainability. There were like all these other things, attributes and skill sets that are needed for farming, especially food production. So I think that even just like recognizing that like the farming component and the farming community is not the bottom of the system. Like we're like in a whole paradigm shift, not just economically, you know? So I think that that's kind of like even in these conversations with tourism, I mean, like, I'm super grateful to be able to represent that. You know, like what is really happening and really is like moving that up. Otherwise, like our farming communities are gonna be good. I know where to get food, like all the best food that there ever was, but that's not gonna be everyone. And we really started during the pandemic, like everyone just coming, scrambling to us, crying, like where can we get this? Because it was chaotic. But also on the farming side, people had been so inflexible on the farming end as well. Like we also had people who had been farming for generations also coming to us crying, like, what are we gonna do? Because we were not safe. You know, like we had all of these just specific contracts and we didn't have enough diversity. And I feel like that kind of comes up as well. Like, can agriculture really be a diversifier for our economy here? And like, we have a lot of work to do. Like, we have a lot, but it's not impossible. I feel like we're already seeing it, like Dexter was saying, like these small movements. And even when we're getting intake from people who are trying to join our program to like become farmers, a lot of them have restaurants or are a part of the tourism industry at some point, and they see it. They're like, we want to do this because like we want to have our own food, but like we see where it can get in. So I feel like that brings me hope. Like that keeps me fighting the good fight.
Right. And just briefly, because you've mentioned it some, Dexter. So the Good Food Program, I think you mentioned 27. Is that what you said?
Yeah, a little over 27 properties have signed their life to us, essentially, to pledge to really support local economies, to support good animal welfare, support communities and people, and ensure that the farmers are getting livable wages that they're buying the food from.
Okay, and so, and you've touched on this some, Pomai, what are the root causes preventing tourism from supporting, or if not the root causes, just some of the causes that's preventing, tourism from really helping boost boost the food system, to help recreate the food system?
You know, honestly, I feel like it's just like the unknowing. Like a lot of the conversations I'm in, you know, like we are so siloed, our industries, and you know, especially tourism, and I'm a product of tourism. I feel like tourism has given me so many opportunities, so I don't have like that super heavy grudge that some people do. Like I've seen tourism really open doors, but at the same time, I feel like, you know, tourism has kind of gone on with a certain sense of arrogance. Like we're untouchable. Like we're above all of that. So like when you get into a conversation with folks that, again, I stated everything that I'm at, like we do not grow enough food for Hawaii. Like their minds are blown still. We have had these conversations, we have panels, we know. And that's because like they're so removed from it, because like when you're in tourism, you know, and you're, especially corporate tourism, I'm not talking about like small families that are trying to, you know, make tours. We're selling them a dream, and the dream is not about like, is not necessarily about how everything gets to you. The dream is like, it was already there, and poof, it was magic, you know? So even just conversations of like, no, I cannot get you 100 pounds of broccoli right now today, because we have to grow it, you know? Like but that's the thing, is like kind of just being able to open up these circles, but like we will grow it for you. Like that's the thing, is like, and then they, like on the tourism side, they're like, oh, okay, you could have said, yeah, but you cannot ask me today for it tomorrow. You know, so it really comes down to like, could we plan together instead of just like everybody do their own thing and then come back and be like, oh, but we had this idea, like, well, it was off. And we see a lot of that here. So I think what we're trying to do is not be so off. We're like trying to at least be like, can we be kind of closer to what we're all trying to achieve together?
So like a real collaboration rather than just taking orders.
Yeah, and collaboration is really hard, you know, because not everybody, I want to say, especially when it comes to policy, you know, it's like, you know, we have between, what is it, like 600 and 800,000 people that come in every month, you know, and like, I was reading this thing from DBET, like the average person spends about $250, you know, like, okay, I feel like they're spending way more than that. Are you even coming to Hawaii? Like, oh my gosh, I can spend $50 on just poke. Like, you know, so like when I'm looking like, okay, I feel like this is a little off of a number, but like even if you just were like to multiply that $50, $60 times all of those people, and find a way to make it possible to like everything that we grow first, like has to stay here, you know, but like these are all things that take process, take collaboration, and not everybody agrees on what is the best method and mechanism for that. So like we have to find new ways, I feel like a lot of the work that we do is picking and choosing which battle.
What do you think, Dexter, is part of the commitment, not just a commitment to, in theory, buy, but really a commitment to engage and work with the industry?
Yeah, going back to the Oʻahu Good Food Program, not to like stand on the one thing, but it's really showing us, we partner with Oʻahu Visitor Bureau, Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, Hawaiʻi Public Health Institute, which, why the heck is a Hawaiʻi Public Health Institute involved in tourism, food stuff, right?
Right.
But really and others, but looking at really bringing in a vast array of stakeholders. And of course, the agricultural industry, but bringing this vast array of stakeholders in to have this conversation, and kind of, like Pomai keeps saying, you gotta kind of stretch or maybe break down the walls a bit. And that's when these successes start happening. And working in government now for 10 years, that like, we love silos. We don't talk to anybody. I stay at my desk, this is safe. But my team is out and about all the time because that's the only way we're gonna get stuff done. The government can't solve this alone. Private sector can't solve this alone. Philanthropy can't solve this alone. This is truly a we thing. We've got to do this together.
What else do you think the tourism industry can do to support this? You've got the Good Food program, which is great, but what else do you think the industry could do?
I think that's actually a good start. Like, it's like, what I often see a lot is people creating more products and not enough pathway. So it's like we don't need more things that look similar, more initiatives that look similar. It's like we already kind of know what needs to happen. So I think if we were able to even prove that, like I would, for example, this, like from my lens, I want to see this initiative succeed. Like we need models that are proven. So like if one person makes it through and they had a successful model or strategy, then that made it through the whole system, that was able to do the whole thing, even if it was just to make like a little small impact, then that's a model that everybody else could use. Maybe not the same, maybe they would customize it for their communities, but like if we just kind of keep making stuff, like let's just keep trying, which is, I get that as well. Like, okay, well this isn't working, so like let's pivot, but also like, because these kinds of like the newer initiatives, like if we could give them a go and see if we could get them through and sort of even find a threshold or a timeline on what that kind of success looks like, I think that's what I would like to see more of, like more micro successes instead of waiting for like a huge macro success. Like, okay, clock is ticking.
What do you think a micro success would look like? Just an example.
I mean, for me, when I look at like micro success, I look at like, you know, like really bringing it down regionally. So, you know, like when we look at stuff like, okay, we're trying to build a program for a region. Like, let's just say, like Waimanalo. Let's just throwing it out there. Like, okay, there's that, but like Waimanalo's big. There's lots of things in there. So maybe it's like Waimanalo homesteaders, like bringing it down another, like, and I mean, again, or a neighborhood or a, you know, like what does their food system look like? Because, and again, these are just things that like were magnified, especially during the pandemic, like how people really had to rely on their communities. And now we kind of like have stretched back out. We like feel kind of safer again. And there's opportunity to be more collaborative, but I really feel like communities who are already doing things like that we should be taking that insight and figuring out like, okay, how can this be, like, how can this success be applied somewhere else? And so again, or like a small school, or, you know what I mean? Because like, we have so many people to feed that I feel like it's overwhelming. So then you're just like, I don't think, you know, like, not everyone's in it can stay in it. Like, you're just like gonna have a panic attack, freak out, and be like, I can't do this anymore, I'm gonna work at the bank. You know, where it's like, cool, whatever, but at the same time, I feel like the successes don't always need to be big. They can be small and then plenty.
Okay. What do you think, Dexter? What else could?
Agree, but I'm gonna maybe jump to the other side. I want the tourism industry to invest in infrastructure here. Like, if they're gonna use infrastructure, then invest in it. Like, and
Me too, I agree.
It could be half self-serving. For example, the tourism industry on Oʻahu should invest in a small animal processing facility so they can get small animals on their menu. We don't have that capacity right now. Yeah. Imagine just 4 million being diverted from the hospitality sector could open and operate for, I think, a year, rough estimate, a small animal processing facility. Now we can get hogs, sheep, all of that to not only our tourism sector, but to our families.
Right.
So why not ask for that? On the flip side, participation in groups like Transforming Hawaii Food Systems Together, where we're articulating this large scope of how we can really huli the system, is important. Because we can't just say get rid of, well, I guess we could, but I don't think we're gonna say just get rid of tourism, because we don't have that immediate replacement. But let's leverage that.
Right, so what I'm hearing is when we talk about changing the food system and using tourism to help do it, the idea would be the tourism industry invests, the guests say they want to buy local food. We've seen the survey results showing that. They invest in it, and it not only helps the tourism industry with buying food, but it helps recreate the food system. And this is what we're talking about, because when we have processing facilities and they can be used to feed everybody.
Exactly. And maybe they don't want to create a whole new facility, but it's an existing food hub that they'll truly partner with that sources ultra local and help them grow.
Yeah. One of the, I'm sorry. Did you have-
No, I was just gonna say that, like, really, it's a capacity building issue. So we don't have the infrastructure. We can't scale no matter how much they want it or they want to pay, are willing to pay for it. So like, again, where it's tourism dollars that are not just going back to like us servicing guests. Like it's tourism dollars that actually help support Hawaii. And like with the infrastructure thing, yes, 100%.
Or imagine an endowment for GoFarm created by the tourism industry.
Yeah.
To then invest in our people over and over and over again year after year,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Why not?
We're creating it all right here, you guys.
Kind of.
Yeah, kind of. We're writing it all down.
It's the small wins, though. Small wins.
So looking more broadly at the food system and the role it plays in the economy and the health of the community and the environmental aspects of Hawaii. Can you talk a little bit about that? This is taking a couple of steps back and looking back at the food system and its importance to all of these things. Again, the environment, the economy, and the social fabric of the community, including health. I mean, healthier food is good for everybody. Can you talk a little bit about that? Why is, when we really think about it, why is it ultimately important for Hawaii to do this?
I eat, you eat. I think I plan to do it the rest of my life. So that
Right.
on the base level is why it's important. But, and I guess what hurt me a little bit that hurt me a lot actually. Good thing that conversation was recorded. A few years ago, there was a report that came out that was really depressing. I think it was Uhiro that released a report that said like, even if we double ag, the impact on us, on the economy is like small.
Right. Yes,
But-
GDP.
Right. But should GDP truly be how we measure success?
Right.
And I don't think so. I think that's kind of obvious in my talk. But not only that, if we're only measuring at the farm gate, sure, okay, maybe, small impact. But the supply stores that feed into that, or upstream now, the manufacturing, and all of the other businesses that's quite complex in a food system is key. And that's what's really amazing, where UH West Oʻahu, Albie Miles, and others are taking the step back that, yes, agriculture is super important because it almost lays this base foundation to this conversation. But we've got to take the conversation more than just at the farm gate, because the impact that our farmers have, if we invest in that, multiplies throughout the whole economy. Because I plan to eat the rest of my life, and maybe I should eat better.
Right.
I would say that, like, we're isolated out here. So like the sense of urgency, for us to be looking at food system, I just think about it because like no one was really prepared for the pandemic. Yeah, and that really shined like such an incredible light on our most vulnerable populations, but then like also our entire population. So like that to me, I feel like the last 3 years have been extremely transformative in the food system. And when we were deep in the thick of it, I never seen people move so fast. I never, in like my whole career.
And break down silos.
Yes, like
Yeah.
no, I mean, and things were getting pushed through like I had never seen.
Government never released funding that fast,
Yes.
and never will again,
Yes,
quite frankly.
yes. But then now it's the slowest I've ever seen. So I don't have a remedy or solution for that. I just feel like it's this awareness because like we're still feeling the effects of that. Like shortages on every level. So I mean, and circling back around to like why is food systems is important? Like because we all need to eat food. Yeah. So and also, like when we look at the visitor industry, like all the people who serve those jobs and in those positions and are there to like care for the visitor industry are moving away. So it's like who's gonna carry that on? And again, like the food system is just this, people connect through food. You know, so like we, even in our storytelling, like even in our new narratives for Hawaii, like what we want it to be, it's like, it's not just like this showy, glamorous food. It's about like connection to place. So I feel like I see those narratives, like that's the stories that like ground people to us. And maybe not every single visitor, but like just in the way that we're crafting our message so that when people think about Hawaii, they're not just thinking like, sand, surf, and sea. I mean, like they still think that, but like where we have a more enriched narrative when we're trying to like bring them over. So we're not building them to just think that they're gonna come here and just be kings of kings. Like that they're coming here and they're like gonna really experience something authentic and true and connected. And I feel like that is what I think tourism industries across the world that are similar to Hawaii are also looking at. So like that's kind of when I look at the strategy.
You also mentioned something that made me think of emergency times, like the food and what we also found just before, what I found personally just before and during the pandemic is that, and as we lead into hurricane season very, very soon, that as government we keep saying, keep 2 weeks of food, maybe keep 3 weeks of food and water, 1 month, whatever it is. But today is a food emergency for a huge section of our population. They don't have that. Then what? Port goes down. And there was just a session a few months ago on this. I won't belabor the point, but also really key piece is during emergency times, we've got to be strong during good times so we can even hope to weather the bad times.
Yeah. So what are some things that participants here now can do over the next 12 to 18 months to help support efforts to really create a better food system? And Dexter, I think one thing you mentioned was Bill 10 and farm housing. Is what else?
Well, Bill 10 covers all land use.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
but you lead to the good point, advocacy. And I get it. Being an advocate or advocating on policy is hard because legislature council things are doing the work day I'm at work, but write into your legislator or council member, try and stay up to date on these things. And I get it. I read through it and I don't know what it's talking about, but try and get educated. There's great organizations out there that do. So that's one thing. And I know for the longest time, I'd be like, vote with your fork, right? Or vote with your wallet. And that is key. But I also feel like we're at this point that you got to do more. We're past the point of just voting with your fork. We've got to do more. So what does that look like? Depends what your sphere or what your sphere of influence looks like. But we've got to be doing more. Can you support your neighbor in emergency food purchases? Maybe that's what it is. Or your business support your workers. Like what it could look like many things.
I think that one, again, the advocacy, but kind of as a spin of that, like also like connected to political will, like education. So there's a lot of people in our communities that like don't understand the bills, don't know what they should do, don't know how, don't have access. So like when we're looking at just, I think, general community programming, that be a component that we start to develop, you know, like how do we get people more involved? Because like it starts here, that's great, everybody's listening, but like that more part, I feel like, and I've seen it with my own family, I've seen it in you know, a lot of the communities that we work, like people will do it if they trust you or they need some hand holding, they need support to like know what is the right thing to do. And I feel like especially when it comes to politics, like people don't know what their options are. So like some education in that. And then I think like, again, even in just sort of our teachings with GoFarm, you know, I always am reminding our participants, like we don't only need lifelong learners, we need lifelong leaders. So like learn and then level up. Like that's where not just like learn and gather, like that's great, but you're gonna have to send it eventually. Like we need, you know, like take some type of action and not be like chaotic and manic, but like align yourself, like do the diligence, see who else is out there, see who you align with, and then like go and learn from them. And a lot of the leaders that are out there are like willing and open to like, if you're serious, I'll help you. But like, if you're just like coming here to just dream with me all of your dreams, like I'm gonna need more than that. Like we don't have the time or the resource. There's not enough of us. So I feel like empowerment is a big, like, especially for community, you know, and like finding those spaces where like you feel you do fit and where you can collaborate, because like collaboration, even connecting, it's like scaled. So like do what you can, do your best, and then like try to figure out, like strategizing together, I think is vital.
Well, we can serve the role at Civil Beat, helping explain to the public what's going on. That's our job, that's what we do, and we're really into it. And to that point, I am going to follow up with you about the ag portions of Bill 10 and try to understand that. And if I don't write about it, somebody else will, and then it lets the public know. So that's the role we play, and we can do that, at least to that extent. We won't tell people how to vote or what to do, but we'll try to explain the issues to them. And it sounds like, I'm aware of Bill 10, it's very sweeping and it's very complicated, but maybe there we can narrow down the sections that people should know about.
And Councilmember Kiana did a great job at breaking it into like residential commercial use, so we can, where we can speak to a section.
Okay.
Totally, awesome follow-up. That's what we can do,
Yes.
at least for Oʻahu.
Yeah. So this is, yeah. And we know that. Okay, great, thank you. Any other points you'd like to make?
I mean, I could go all day. No, I'm just grateful. You know, me and Dexter, we were joking in the back. We're like, oh, when we saw each other's names, we're like, oh, this isn't even going to be that dramatic.
Love fest.
Yeah,
that's
like,
all.
yeah, love fest. Like, we're like totally aligned. And we were just talking about how like it even, you know, because sometimes you're on panels and you're on them with people you don't know really why you're there on the panel. And I feel like we don't have that feeling. Like we're also at these meetings doing this work, like actually in it. And I feel like I'm also so grateful to see all the other people who I also see on the Zoom meetings, also trying to try, you know, because like really right now, like that's hard for people. Like it's not all, it's sometimes it's sad. So you're like, oh, maybe I have to give up. But please don't give up. Really still stick with it. And again, I want to, you know, like emphasize that alignment. Like go out there, gather your information, and then like do your part, and continue to keep trying to do that.
It's amazing to see, right, the folks that we see at these events all the time, but we've also got to start breaking through, like, who's the traditional banker in the audience today? Or who's the realtor that's here that's never really dealt with ag before? Who's the lawyer that is here? Because in fact, I was on a panel with Governor Josh Green once, and you know, we're talking about jobs in ag, and you brought this up too. And we just spoke with another group, and we're like, don't you want to be a farmer? And they're like, I don't even know what a farmer is. But also in this food system, there's so many spots for us to play a role. But I also think I run into this problem even as I'm reaching the old man status, that like I try to do everything because everything is so important. But maybe more important, let's find our lane and let's go deep in it. Let's go deep.
Thanks. So, this will wrap things up. Thank you so much, Dexter, Kishida, Pomai, Weigert, for today's conversation. Thanks to our funders, W.K. Kellogg Foundation, the Hawaii Community Foundation, Kamehameha Schools, the Stupski Foundation, the Frost Family Foundation, the Queens Health Systems, and the Ulupono Fund. Also, I want to thank our operations team at Civil Beat for coming here. We have Asia, Ku'u, Megan, Courtney, and Eduardo. Thank you so much for helping out.